So Furiosa is a prequel spin-off movie to the absolutely incredible Mad Max Fury Road, and this time it is a dedicated origin storyline of the Furiosa character, and it was an absolute spectacle watching this on the big screen. But speaking of the big screen, it unfortunately failed at the box office. Now, the action sequences were truly spectacular, and I feel like the ways in which it linked into Fury Road was so brilliantly done, and I feel like the savageness of all of these characters was just realized in this post-apocalyptic world really well. However, for me, I felt like the movie just felt like it was a little bit too long, and whilst the storyline narrative of what happens to the Furiosa character is explored in a really good way, I just feel like the character is so muted in this movie versus how she is in the next one. And so as a result, I just feel like she just lacks so much substantial depth. Now, I did appreciate all of the imagery that they were telling. For example, this character taking the fruit from Eden and then kind of getting banished and taken away from there, and then becoming this warrior princess that is just so driven to find her way back. But I just wanted to see so many more layers from this character, especially as Charlize Theron's version of her is so good in Mad Max Fury Road. But contrastingly to that, I feel like Chris Hemsworth's scene-stealing performance more than made up for it, as he was super layered, as you're just learning more and more things about him. And I just love the visual representation of the degradation of this character, and you're seeing him become even more brutal, even more savage, even more greedy, even more unhinged. But even though all of this is taking place, he is still incredibly smart and is always 10 steps ahead of everyone else. And I love the fact that Immortan Joe is still such a big presence in this movie. Of course, in the next one you get to see so much more from him, and so he doesn't overstay his welcome, but I feel like the way in which they just incorporated this character and sprinkled him across this movie was done really well. And I love the Mad Max cameo. If anything, I feel like they could have done a little bit more with him. And you really can see the budget on screen coming to life in the number of different sequences. Firstly, that truck sequence was just put together so well. So many characters are being destroyed, and they're just still coming up with new and more innovative things for these characters to go through. And all of the faction battles, even when certain characters are super outnumbered, they are still able to succeed before a big twist then comes their way. I just feel like I said, from a narrative point of view, as well as from a visual representation point of view, this movie came together really well. I do think that they should have and could have included Charlize Theron's character in here, even if it was just an extended cameo right at the end, and just throwing it forwards. I'm guessing maybe they just didn't want Anya Taylor-Joy to feel like, you know, maybe this isn't her movie, especially as she isn't there for like the first 30 minutes of it. I know that Furiosa references the fact that she has tried to escape with the wives a number of different times in Mad Max Fury Road, but I just feel like they could have just done something clever in terms of throwing it forwards, as if you're going to do something like you have seen in Rogue One and then throwing it forwards into New Hope, which they were trying to do with the baton being passed with Anya Taylor-Joy's version of the character trying to escape with the wives, then I feel like, come on, you should go all the way. I mean, at some points they do really feel like two completely different characters, which is fine. Obviously everyone grows up, and of course all of the crazy circumstances that Furiosa finds herself in is of course going to lead her to become someone very different. But like I said earlier, Anya Taylor-Joy's version of the character is so muted that at first it feels difficult to engage with her, but also just feels so different. A little bit more like Millie Bobby Brown's damsel character from that Netflix movie, and Charlize Theron's version of her is a little bit similar to the survivor in Resident Evil. Even though Anya Taylor-Joy's version is so much more muted, when she does speak and when she does scream that she is Furiosa, it has so much impact. And I'm just so glad that Chris Hemsworth is here as his larger-than-life performance of Dementus. Firstly, you can tell that Chris Hemsworth is just having an absolute blast playing him, especially as he originally wanted to be Mad Max, but he didn't get the role, as at that time his profile wasn't as high as it of course is now. And I feel like it all kind of worked out, as he is just so good as Dementus. Firstly, the character's motivations, which you learn about right at the end of this movie, and then like I said before, the visual representation of this character's growth and degradation was really interesting, as well as the character's look and feel. I feel like they took a lot of inspiration of how Colin Farrell was completely transformed in The Penguin, and I feel like the way in which Chris Hemsworth was playing the character felt a little bit inspired by Jack Sparrow, and a little bit inspired as well by the Joker. Is of course understandably going to have a dark effect on certain people, and from Dementus's point of view, the way in which he wants to maintain his leadership position is just being the worst of the worst. And he also said that because he lost everything, very similarly to how Furiosa has unfortunately lost everything, when he is absolutely awful, this in a twisted way gives him life and ambition. I feel like everybody from the cast and of course the creators do a good job in terms of bringing you into the wasteland, into this crazy scenario scenario. As compared to other properties that try to do something similar, it always feels like a little bit too much of a stretch to really believe it. But I feel like the creators and of course the cast do a good job in really immersing you into this apocalyptic, helpless world where people will do anything to survive. I didn't know what to make of Praetorian Jack when he first gets introduced and put on the map, as I feel like Furiosa was a little bit too trusting of him, and she is usually such a clever character, so I feel like she was divulging everything to him. But in the end, they actually made such a nice pair, and even when he was giving her the signal to basically just run away, she didn't want to, and she went back to save him. But Dementus did not like this at all, and he was just so determined to catch up with them. And he was so barbaric to both of them in how he wanted to finish both of them off. I wonder if he would have still done that if he knew that this was Little D. And they have always said that the franchise is viewed as fables, myths, and legends, and isn't too concerned about canon. So I thought this was really cleverly done at the end in terms of, you know, people can interpret whatever they want in terms of what happened in the end with Furiosa and Dementus. But I feel like the path that they did go down in terms of Furiosa using him to create the tree was super twisted. Maybe you could argue that, you know, he deserved this after being so barbaric to so many different people. But nonetheless, I do actually think that Furiosa is a really good movie. I enjoyed it a lot. I do feel like it is a little bit overhyped and a little bit too long, but nonetheless, I feel like you're going to have a really good time with this movie if you haven't watched it already. And so for all of those reasons, I'm going to give it a solid 6 out of 10. Now I'd love to hear from you. What did you think of this film? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.